Explore the history, relationships, expertise, and data that go into ensuring Stine growers get maximum yield potential. This is the Stine Seedcast. Here's your host, David Thompson.
Hello, and welcome to the Stine Seedcast. I'm your host, David Thompson, National Marketing and Sales Director for Stine Seed Company. We've got another great episode lined up with special guests, expert insights, and discussion on everything you need to know about maximizing yield potential. On today's episode, our special guest is Duane Murley, Farm Director for AM 540 KWMT out of Fort Dodge, Iowa. Welcome to the show, Duane.
Well, thank you, David. Thanks for having me.
So as an Iowa native, Duane's interest in radio started back when he was on his grandparents' farm, and he grew up listening to 540 KWMT during the long rides in tractor and combine. Now he's among the farm broadcasting elite, having spent almost 4 decades on the air. From joining farmers on tractor rides around the state of Iowa to his involvement in Feed the Farmer events, Duane has been active in the everyday lives of growers and producers all across the state of Iowa. When he's not on the air, you can find Duane behind the wheel of a tractor, where he helps a local family with planting and harvesting of their row crop operation near Rockwell City. Duane is also a 30-plus year member of the Rockwell City Fire Department and is a board member on the Calhoun County Community Foundation. We look forward to learning more about Duane's background in farming and ag broadcast and his role in helping share the stories of farmers and producers. So let's get started. So Duane, again, welcome to the show. Known you for a lot of years, and really excited to have you on the show to talk about something that I, being in the ag sphere, love, which is farm broadcasting, the lifeblood of communication and agriculture.
Right. Well, I'm excited to be here, David. This is a little odd for me because I'm on the other side of the microphone, as she knows. So I've interviewed you several times over the years. So I'm happy for this opportunity here.
Awesome.
Today.
Yeah. Don't try to take over the interview. I'm going to try to keep the reins on.
I won't do that.
So for starters, Duane, again, we talked about you're an Iowa native, grew up here in the state of Iowa, but just give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Sac City, up in Sac County, and born in 1966. So I was able to spend a lot of time on my grandparents' farm growing up, and I actually lived in town, but every kid wants to get out to the farm any chance he can get. So that was kind of my story growing up, and my grandparents had a farm. We had corn and soybeans, and back then we had oats. We raised oats more for the oat straw for bedding for the livestock, and
Sure.
and had cattle and hogs and sheep, and had some geese and all that good stuff. So my roots with farming really starts at my grandparents' farm growing up.
Yep, a classic kind of diversified, 20th century farm operation.
Exactly, big garden and all that stuff, and that was going in about this time of year.
So tell us about coming out of school. I mean, did you know you wanted to be in farm broadcasting?
No. So backing up, at Sac City, we had a high school radio station, which when I was in 7th or 8th grade, I really took an interest in. Everybody, wants to be a DJ or a firefighter. My dad was already a firefighter, so I kind of knew that routine and knew that I would be a firefighter, but I kind of took an interest in, being a DJ back then. And the radio station at the high school actually broadcast over the local cable channel, which was kind of unique, and gave me an opportunity to spend 2 or 3 periods a day in the radio booth, and things just kind of grew from there. People say, how did it all start, or where did your interest begin at? And I think it was the interest in the radio program at that time, KSAC, and from there it just kind of grew. And I had done some other radio with a station out of Storm Lake when I was still in high school, and every once in a while I'd sneak over to Fort Dodge in the evening and kind of got to know the behind-the-scenes type stuff. And when an opportunity became available, my senior year in high school at Sac City, I actually got the call on February 21st. I remember that day because that was my brother's birthdays. And then I started my first air shift on KWMT KWMT and our sister station KKZ on March 3rd. So it was kind of at that time I just transitioned into Fort Dodge Radio, and our farm director at that time, Doug Cooper, who has been in farm broadcasting for many, many years and still is today, and retired from that actually. But Doug was going to be gone one day, and like everybody, it's like, hey, I'm going to be gone. Can you fill in? So he gave me some cheat sheets to look at, and looking back, I guess the rest is history. That was 38 years ago. So, yeah.
That's amazing, to have not even finished high school yet, and you're moving right into what would be a long career for you.
Yeah, exactly. Right, and to find something that you love. I mean, I still say that today. I mean, I get out of bed at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work, and there's not one day in that time period I've never wanted to go to work. I mean, it's always get up and get in and do my job. And, they always say if you pick a career that you love, it's never work. And I have to admit that's the radio.
And for obviously we have listeners of the podcast all over the United States, right. And just as a frame of reference, KWMT would be located right in the center part of Iowa, right. And has a really, really long history and a long following. You said Doug Cooper, Gary DiGiuseppe.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So you're one in a long line of really good farm broadcasters coming out of that station.
Yeah, exactly. Bruce Gorder was one of them too. Von Kettleson, started with Dave Fitzgerald back in the 60s and 70s, and just Randy Rasmussen. I mean, I counted up one day, and I think I'm number 7. And it's longevity. It seems like once you get in farm radio, you'll stay there. And even if you move to another station, you're still in farm radio. And I think you see that today just with the general farm careers. I mean, somebody may be at one organization at one point, but maybe they move on. They're able to advance, but they never get out of that. And I mean, there's people that I've worked with all 38, 39 years that are still in the farm business or career, but they're still very active today. They might just be working for another organization, another company, but they never get far away from it.
And the farm broadcasting has a really strong association, National Association of Farm Broadcasters. So, I mean, again, a very tight-knit community.
Yeah, and, the neat thing is, even though we're competitors on the radio dial, we still talk to each other, daily, weekly, monthly. And if I've got a question, I mean, another farm broadcaster is just one phone call away, because there's some things that I may, announce or talk about daily that I just have a few extra questions, and I can call that other farm broadcaster up. So it is a real tight community, and we just all work hand in hand. We've all got the same message. We just want to deliver the best farm radio we can do. And like I said, even though we're competitors on the dial, we're still friends and still out for that same message.
So you would be, when you go back, you're starting at KWMT, it's going to be probably the mid-1980s?
1985, my senior year, yeah.
Okay, so curious, do you remember your first big kind of story, kind of scoop?
Absolutely.
What was it?
So my actual first day was on our FM sister station, and that I used to run the Casey Kasem Countdown show on Sunday afternoon. Well, then I had the opportunity to go to KWMT shortly after that, and I remember that first broadcast. I went in there, and I thought I had everything planned. And you know what I forgot, David? I forgot the April lean hog contract. And I had a guy call me. He said, I just lost $36,000 because you did not give that report on the May contract. And that's got to do with the guys at Faro in December. It's not a very highly traded contract, but those that make their living on the Faro in December and maybe sell those hogs in May, they want to know that information. So absolutely, I do remember that first day, that phone call when I got off the air, and he lost a lot of money just because I wasn't given that May contract.
Bring up markets, obviously that is almost the lifeblood, certainly of farm broadcasting.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you're walking around town in Fort Dodge, can you tell the mood of the people depending on what markets you read to them earlier that day?
Well, definitely the farmers. Yeah, absolutely. But, it goes beyond that. And, when I was thinking about what you and I were going to talk about today, one of the first pieces of advice I got 37 years ago was from the owner of a livestock barn down in Dunlap, John Shaven. He called me and we were talking, and he said, Duane, he said, your job is kind of like mine in a way. He said, every day I go to work and we have families bring their cattle in to sell. He said, I got to do the best job I can, because that may be the one or maybe one of two paychecks they get every year. And, could you imagine only getting one paycheck a year? So you got to do the best job you can. And he said, you think about that, and I still remember him telling me that today. And even people that work for John, I share that story, and they say, you know what, he's told me the same exact thing. So I feel that's my job. I've got to go in and I've got to deliver the best farm news or markets that I can deliver, because it's a livelihood. And it's no different than, you with Stine Seed. When you promote your product, they're buying the soybeans, they're buying the corn hybrids, and that's their livelihood. And we've all got to deliver on that. And I know with Stine Seed, the representatives I work with, it's about putting together multi-year data and so forth. And to me, that's important too, because when they make that seed selection, come that fall, that may be the one paycheck they get that year. And I don't know, to me it's a passion, David. It's a passion.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, as you're progressing, of course, mid to late 80s, not an ideal time in the world of agriculture.
No, it was tough then.
So what was your takeaways from those earliest days in farm broadcasting at that time?
Well, I got involved with that. My grandpa, he lost some farmland. He lost probably 40 to 50 acres, and the lending institutions back then, they were basically giving a lot of farmers blank checks and said, hey, go build what you want, and he did. He had a lot of hogs on cement. We poured a lot of cement, a lot of cattle. Expanded the row crop acres and so forth, but then the farm crisis hit, and a lot of that stuff was pulled away from those farmers, and he was caught in that. So I got to see that, firsthand. And I don't know that when I first started in farm broadcasting that I don't know that I really put a lot into that, even though I saw it, because we're able to use other folks that help us out. I maybe deliver the farm news, the markets, but, we've got analysts that talk about, the financial side of everything. And so, using those tools I had, I don't know that I really dove into it like I, looking back, I probably could have. But yeah, I was affected. I saw it firsthand.
Yeah. So, looking ahead, so obviously, like I said, you've been at this a while now. So, how has your role changed versus when you started?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably, honestly, more in the fact that more people are doing, or less people are doing more work. I mean, I'm doing the job of maybe 3 or 4 people, like compared to when I started. So I have to, I have to utilize my time very efficiently, depending on whether I'm doing an air shift or, then devote my time towards the markets and being out and about for, events and so forth, field days and so forth. So it's probably, I don't think I probably have the dedicated time today that I had back when I started. Back then you could just do farm radio. Now, you might have to do an air shift. You do farm radio. You've got, other duties and so forth. So I just think that's probably the biggest change that I have seen.
Sure. Change in time specialization and focus.
Yeah, exactly. And, one of the things, too, is the technology, the computers. Back when I started, I mean, we had these printers that were in the newsroom. There were 3 of them. One had green paper, one had yellow paper, one had white paper. One was for strictly farm markets. One was for the Associated Press. One was for a sports printers. So, that stuff used to come, printed off. That thing would be back there shaking. You go back at 212 because you knew at 212 the markets were closed, and you went back and ripped that off, and you read it like that. Or today, everything's so accessible with computers, and back then we had reel-to-reels. Today we're using equipment just like we're recording on today. So, back then you just kind of had to, hope you got it right the first take, where now we can kind of go back in and kind of, do a little radio magic. But that was probably one of the biggest changes too.
Yeah. So I know you like to get out and about in the countryside.
Yeah, 100%.
And remote broadcast is kind of a project in and of itself.
Yeah. My equipment looks exactly like this. If I would have brought my stuff in today, we could have set up and it would look exactly like this. My laptop, my board, my microphones, and sometimes I have to carry my generator with me because I might be at a bin site or out in the middle of a field. So, you always got to be prepared. But I can pretty much be remotely anywhere.
Famous farm broadcast from WHO, Lee Klein.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Used to talk about, a little bit of ambient noise goes a long way because it shows you're out there and you're doing stuff. And like I said, I've seen you out and about and doing a lot of great remote work, and I think that's a unique talent.
And I love the background noise. And, of course, I listen to Lee. I actually worked with Lee storytelling at the Iowa State Fair and had that opportunity. And to this day, David, back home, I've got a kind of like a little firebox underneath my bed, and I've still got the letter that Lee sent me after we did our first storytelling together. And I had, I think back then I had maybe 4 or 5 stories that I told. And we always did it the first day of the Iowa State Fair. We're up in the barn, the Farm Bureau barn at the top of the hill where the skylift takes you. And I think I did 5 stories, and Lee was very complimentary and told me he liked the topics and where I could improve, but I still got that letter. So legendary, but you're right. I mean, for him to go out and do something, right along in the combine, you always want that noise behind you because you don't want to, make it sound like you're just sitting along the side of the road. You want people to know that you're out there, and you want the dogs barking and the chickens crowing and all of that. So yeah, 100%.
That's good investigative journalism. You're
exactly.
out there. Yeah. So I'm sure over the years you've had the opportunity to interview a lot of really, really fascinating people. I'm curious, who comes to mind first and foremost?
They all have a great story to tell. And in today's world, a lot of times when I'm out, you talked about Feed the Farmer earlier, and I get there pretty early. And a lot of times it's just the farmer and I, we're talking. And I've had 85-year-old farmers just break down in tears, and it's got to do with, handing that farm down to the next generation. And some farmers have that family member, others don't. Some farmers may have felt that at some point 15 years ago, they knew they needed to break the farm apart from maybe a brother or, land that was handed down through the family, but just looking ahead, knowing the pieces of the pie just keep getting thinner. So some, they've all got a story, and I don't know that one actually sticks out. They all have a story. They might talk about their century farm, being in the family 100 years, or the heritage farm being in the family 150 years, and how they've been able to keep that together. And they've all got their own story to tell.
Yeah, and that's what's great about farm broadcasting. There's no shortage of stories to tell,
not at all.
And everyone is unique in its own way.
And there's a lot of pride. There's a lot of pride in I was recently with a young family down in far southern Iowa, and you hear the stories of the young farmers who may have bought the farm out of high school and maybe had help with mom or dad or grandma and grandpa that were able to help them out and get a good start, and that's going to be their livelihood. And those are always fascinating stories too, because even in today's world, some of the farmers may have off-farm jobs too. They may work in town for a few hours a day and then, farm at night and so forth. So, young or old, there's just there's a lot of great stories out there.
You mentioned, I guess, succession, right? As a significant topic. Are there other overarching topics come to mind when you think about things that you've covered in the last 4 decades?
Yeah, I think maybe weather and crops being affected by weather, maybe coming up short on yield and so forth, come harvest time, and some farmers that may be in livestock that, because of corn prices and so forth, they had to, liquidate their livestock. And some of these are, maybe cow-calf operations that, were started 1 or 2 generations ago before them, and they just feel like they're having to give that up, and they even though they really don't have any other choice. I kind of like it to maybe small communities that had a school at one time, and through consolidation just had to that building had to be closed, and that building sticks out in that town as being everybody remembers going to it. But I think that with the livestock, maybe having to give up an established cow herd to make ends meet.
As we think about, again, one of the things that I'm always fascinated with farm broadcasting, it has such a unique place in the fabric of agriculture,
right.
row crop agriculture.
Right.
Whether it was, farm markets, right?
Right.
Everybody stop. Everybody stop everything.
Yeah. And I have people. All the time tell me, "Boy, I have no idea what you're saying, but I just love listening to them." And even people that aren't associated with the farm, they like to hear farm markets because they know, man, if everything's up, then the guy that I run into at the hardware store, he's going to be happy and all of that. So it does kind of set the mood and set the tone when markets are good and so forth. So, but yeah, markets have just kind of become a part of the woven fabric, it seems like, in the farm world.
Well, what's interesting is I think that there are so many places that information can be had,
right,
in this day and age. But I still think it just there's something about, for a grower, hearing it spoken to them.
Exactly. And I tell people all the time, David, daily, we've got to get out and we've got to prove our relevancy. Like you said, there's a lot of places that farmers can go to, but each and every day I have to prove my relevancy because the markets I give, they're real time. They're not on a 10-minute delay. They're there right now. This is exactly what's happening at this second. And, I think it just comes down to proving our relevancy and proving the fact that the information we give is the most accurate that's available at that time.
Yeah, because it would seem to me that, again, given all the different communication vehicles that are out there, the idea would be to think, well, it's a very fragmented market, and the the weight of farm broadcasting may be in jeopardy. I don't see that being the case.
No, the only thing, the issue right now, the talk over the last 2 or 3 months is some manufacturers eliminating AM radio out of their vehicles, and the big push from the farm broadcasters was the fact that, hey, we are very relevant. We deliver livelihood information each and every day, weather, markets, no matter what it is. So I think some of those manufacturers are kind of rethinking some of that. But, radio is so relevant. I mean, there's so many vehicles and during planting season, during harvest, our phones just things expand 10 times because the people are out there, they're listening and they're getting that information real time, and I don't know, everybody says that. I kind of probably take it for granted, but everybody says, gosh, you've been there for like 36 years. We're so used to you delivering the markets. This is the way you do that. And so I think there probably is something to that with just knowing that, the way they're hearing, the markets and it's being delivered, it's kind of reassuring for them.
Yeah. Just that everything's right in the world.
Yeah.
Because Duane came on.
Especially when we deliver the right information. Yeah.
That helps if it's a good market day.
Exactly.
So thinking ahead, again, you get to go out and talk to so many growers and people from all parts of this industry, I guess. What are the things that you've heard or had those conversations that you think are going to guide agriculture in the next, 5 to 10 years?
That's probably a good question. Back in 2018, we had the bird flu come through. That was pretty devastating for our area, especially with the amount of poultry, not only turkeys, but also the chicken industry, chicken layers, the eggs, and the meat chickens and so forth. And I think one of the biggest things that's going to affect probably my job and maybe some of the markets and so forth is probably going to be, the exports, the demand for, meats and meals and the ethanol industry and so forth looking ahead. And I think locally in Fort Dodge, we have such a strong basis, and for those that are wondering what a basis is, that's basically what a ethanol plant or a cooperative is going to pay over the market price that day. And we have a strong basis, so we have that demand for ethanol. We have that demand for soy meal for the livestock industry. We have that, so I really think that's going to be a huge driving factor over the next, as we look ahead 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years down the road is that the demand for the products the farmers are raising and growing.
Yeah, and the global market continues to grow and expand.
Exactly.
And so, and as you pointed out in the area where you're at, with the ethanol industry being what it is,
right,
you've got some elasticity in the market there, because you've
exactly,
got, you can take it for grain, you can take it for meal, you can use it for ethanol. There's a lot of different ways to go with that crop.
Right. Yeah, and you see that through Stine Seed. I mean, the world market it is today, and it's we're seeing Brazil grow more soybeans each and every year, and the South American countries that are more active in soybean production and corn production for their own ethanol and so forth. So I just think it's all a piece of the pie, and it's all very relevant with what's ahead.
So switching gears a little bit. So in the intro, we talked about different things you're involved with in your community. You're a firefighter.
I am 30 years. July, 30 years. My dad, he is a 52-year member of the Sac City Fire Department. I'll have my 30 years in Rockwell City coming up this summer. So, yeah, I mean, that's just always been a part of my life. So it's just kind of a way that I can give. And also, I'm involved with the Calhoun County Community Foundation, and we are the board that oversees the lottery money that comes into Calhoun County, and also some proceeds from the Wild Rose Casino in Jefferson that they also give to the contingent counties around Greene County. So I'm on that board, and I think this year we awarded nearly $200,000 to organizations around Calhoun County that had projects and so forth. So yeah, between the fire department and of course, you never know how much time that's going to take. The pager might go off at 2 a.m, but the foundation, we get together several times a year and kind of go over grants and stuff like that. So I stay busy with that.
Well, I see a common thread that runs through all these things. Being involved with fire department, being involved in the foundation, being involved in farm broadcasting, it's community, right?
Right, exactly.
The tie that seems to bind everything that you're involved in.
Yeah. One of the other things, too, I help a farm family south of Rockwell City. I've done that for, I don't know, if I went back and looked, maybe close to 10 years. It's more than 5, I know that. But, they give me the opportunity in the spring and in the fall to go out to the farm and anything really that happens in between that time, too. But, I was able to go out this year and help get the fields ready ahead of the planter. I was actually able to plant one night. I was going to plant beans, and Mother Nature had other plans. I worked for about an hour and a half when I was going to work about 4 hours and really knock this field out. Well, it started to rain, which is a good thing, but they give me that opportunity. So I can go out in the field and, talk about running the row shutoffs and, just continuous planting, not even stopping until we have to fill up, and, the technology that's in the planting industry today. And so I'm able to go out there and do that during the planting season, and then during the harvest season, I can go out and combine or run the grain cart or run a semi or really whatever needs to be done. So that really gives me the opportunity to, really connect with my listeners too, because I can kind of go out and kind of walk walk the walk and talk the talk that they're doing every day too. So that is kind of a little feather in the hat too, I think.
Absolutely. It keeps you in tune with what's going on in the industry.
Yep, in the know.
Yeah. So you've talked, I think in the intro we talked about these Feed the Farmer events.
Yeah.
I know you've been involved with those in the past. For our listeners, just maybe give a little explanation of what that is. 'Cause I think that's a neat project.
So we are actually wrapping up our 13th year of Feed the Farmer. And Feed the Farmer started 13 years ago in the fall season. And basically what we do for 8 weeks in the spring and 8 weeks in the fall, we go out and we thank the farmers for the job they do each and every year. So we do 8 weeks in the spring, 8 weeks in the fall, so 16 weeks a year. So, the math on that, 16 weeks a year times 13, just over 200 farms we have been at. And what we do, we take a region of counties and open up phone lines for farmers in those counties to call in and get qualified for a chance to win a delicious meal. Sometimes it's prime rib, mashed potatoes and gravy with roast beef. I mean, it's a hot meal that we deliver. So we open up qualifiers through the telephone and also online, and we get a tremendous response. And of course, we always know we're going to get more of a response when the farmers are rolling and the tractors are rolling and the wheels are turning, the tracks are turning because, they're locked onto their radios. So, but yeah, it's just a way for us to go out and say thank you each and every year in the spring and fall for 8 weeks. And it's a fun time. It's a good time. And we've had an opportunity to work with Stine Seed with Feed the Farmer since day one. And you guys have supported the program. And, a lot of times when we get out there, I think Todd Schomburg was probably one of the first ones to really get involved, in Doug Brower and Nick Lobsher up in Carroll County, and then Dustin Ellis. And, through Feed the Farm, I've also got a chance to work with others with Stine Seed at the farm shows and so forth and out and about. But yeah, Feed the Farmer is just kind of the core, one of the core things we do, and to get out and thank the farmers. And, as you know, farmers are the last to take credit for the job they do. And this is a way we can get out there. And, sometimes we're serving at a bin site. We might be out in the end rows serving out of the back trunk of a car or the back end of a pickup. Because we know that it happens during go time, and that happens, not only with our sponsors, but, with the farmers too. So, they may be like, Duane, I just can't stop. But we're like, let us bring you dinner. Let us come out and, invite 8 of your neighbors, your guests, your banker, your landlords, bring people together. Let's just do this. And, we get it done. It's been pretty successful, and really, I mean, it's successful because of sponsors like Stine Seed. I'll tell you that right now, David.
Well, yeah, and my experience has been, that eating meals on the farm teaches you how to be creative about how quickly you're going to eat and how you're going to put that meal together.
Yeah, exactly. So
sometimes you just have to throw it all between a piece of bread and just
and that is exactly what I was going to say. We had one of our farmers, week number 7. He said, Duane, I am so excited about this. He said, for the last, since April 1st, when they first started planting, he said, I go to town and I'd get some lunch meat, and my kids would help me make sandwiches for the entire week. And as you look back on that, I'm thinking, well, that's pretty neat because it gave you quality time with your kids. They were putting those sandwiches together. But he said, Duane, I ran out of lunch meat like a week ago. He said, I'm down to peanut butter and jelly, so I cannot wait for this hot meal to be here. So it is like that, because you're right. I mean, they eat on the go, and sometimes they might not even know what's being packed for them when they head out the doors.
Sure.
So that is a way that kind of one of the fun things about, Feed the Farmer too. We can take that hot meal out to them, and whether it be in a to-go box or, we've had, sandwiches made too, like hot Subway sandwiches and so forth. And, stuff like that. But yeah, it's taking that hot meal out to the machine shed, or, we always joke. In fact, I was just joking with one of my fellow broadcasters, farm broadcasters here a week ago, and he was doing a remote off the back of his pickup, tailgate down, and so I sent him a picture 3 days before I was doing that same thing. And I always joke too that, I probably set up more freezers in garages than any other farm broadcaster, because I just have to set up where I can. I mean, just like this, just find me a spot, give me a few feet, and so it might be a workbench in the shop, it might be a chest type deep freeze in a garage or something like that.
Yep.
So yeah, you just never know where you're going to be.
But like you said, the ability to be portable gets you close to the stories that you care about.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's kind of really, really cool.
Yeah, because I want to be out there. I want to, hear the tractor when it comes in. And, even a story with Feed the Farmer here, I think it was week number 5, you could not have planned it any better. When I called the winner to congratulate him, he said, "You know what? I'm hoping to get done planting today." That was on a Thursday, and we always go out to Feed the Farmer on Friday, and it ended up not working to where they didn't get done on Thursday. But while I'm there on Friday, I got there about 7 in the morning, got set up, and about 10:30 they rolled in and they were done. And he had his 2 kids in the tractor cab with him, and they all got out. They were hooping and hollering. The last of the soybeans were planted, and it could not have worked out any better. The food was showing up at 11:30 that morning to eat, and what a celebration to kind of put a check on being done with the planting season, and then we're there an hour later with Feed the Farmers. So yeah, there's just stories like that happen all the time.
Yeah, it turned into a celebration.
Yeah, exactly.
Dinner.
Yeah.
So are there people that you count, whether it be as a role model or as a inspiration to you in your career? Are there, who do you look to for that kind of inspiration?
Yeah, I also do an on-air music show on KWMT, and I think Dale Eicher is definitely a role model. He's the one that hired me, back in 1985 to work on KWMT, and I look at Dale, and he still works for us today, which is really neat, and I get to see him. But, a lot of the people that I listen to on the radio are people that I started working with in 1985. So I was kind of working with my role models, too, as I began my career in Fort Dodge. But Dale Eicher probably sticks out. And on the farm side, each and every farm broadcaster, because the neat thing about that is, David, I can listen to all those farm broadcasters. As I was growing up, I could listen to them on the radio when I was going home, or, on my way to work and so forth. So, you just kind of learn from them. And it's kind of a unique opportunity because I could just tune them in on the radio and learn what they were doing. So there's probably a lot of role models as I look back, but, just bits and pieces that I was able to take away from that. So on the farm side, farm broadcasting side, David, I would really have to probably point towards Orion Samuelson. I mean, as a farm broadcaster, as a kid on the radio, everybody wanted to be like Orion. Everybody wanted to talk like Orion Samuelson and be an Orion Samuelson in farm broadcasting. And I would sit there and I'd try and talk like Ori, and I just wanted to be like him because he was really, and still is, one of the major voices in agriculture. And so the first time I met Ori, and I have all this stuff going through my head, and it occurred to me, it's like, Duane, there's no way there's only one Orion Samuelson. I mean, there's no way you're going to be an Orion Samuelson because there's only one. So on the farm broadcasting side, I would really have to say Orion Samuelson. And Max Armstrong, too. I've had a chance to work with them on their television program, This Week in Agribusiness, and they interview farm broadcasters throughout the year. But yeah, on the farm side, Max Armstrong, Orion Samuelson, that everybody wants to be like Orion when you're in farm radio. So I would have to say that. And if we got time, I will back up because I did get out of radio full-time at one time. I still work part-time weekends. But Mark Pearson, who is no longer with us, and he was at WHO, and he and I were both asked to co-do judging in Wall Lake at Cookies Food Products for for a chili cook-off.
Okay.
And I'd stepped back from radio for a little bit, and Mark took me aside. We were on a break, and he took me aside, and he said, Duane, he said, you need to reconsider that. You need to reconsider. We need people in radio that have a passion. Can reconsider. So I walked away from another job, gave up quite a bit of money to go back into radio, and I've never regretted that, even though I wasn't fully out of it because I was still there on the weekends. But Mark's encouragement, and I tell his son Mike that all the time. I said, if it wasn't for your dad, I don't know that I'd be back in it full time. But so a little encouragement, and he knew the passion I had, and it's really, once you've got that passion, it's hard to shake it. Hard to shake it.
Well, so we've got Mark Pearson to thank for that.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
And in those years, the last 30, 35, 36 years.
37, 38, yeah.
Exactly. Are there, you talked about a little bit about what you think has changed over the course of your career in farm broadcasting. Any other observations you have from your time and what's different today than what it was when you first started?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that probably sticks out is the age of the farmer today. And, we've got one of the oldest populations for farmers as far as age and still active on the farm. And I think that's probably, just as you look back over 38 years or whatever. I mean, these were farmers that, maybe in the 40s when I was starting out, well, now they're in their upper 70s and so forth. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things is being able to actually see the farmers grow with their operations. And, a lot of the friends that I was associated with back then, they're still active on the farm, and maybe they were part of an organization like, say, Iowa Soybean Association or the Iowa Corn Growers or, the Iowa pork producers or beef producers or cattlemen or anything. Back then they were, young middle-aged farmers, and I've just been able to kind of watch their operations grow, and you kind of watch that population get a little bit older over the years too.
Yeah. And again, it's interesting to me to watch. We get obviously a lot of market research data we look at,
right?
And there's so many places for growers to get information, and certainly a lot of different avenues that they partake in to get that information, right. But still radio is consistently always one of the strongest places. As I said, it just seems to be ingrained in the fabric of agriculture that's where you go, for weather and markets. You go to the radio.
Well, I think, and that goes back to the relevancy. When you punch up that dial, they know that information's going to be there. And we know there's button pushers out there. I hear that. I hear, listeners that are solid that never miss a market report. But when I'm done with mine, they might click to another station that's doing the same thing. And, if they're offset a little bit, they can go between 3 or 4 different stations and just continuously hear that information that we're out there delivering.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I'm curious, if you go back in time to young Duane just starting his career in farm broadcasting, what advice would you have?
Probably pay attention and, go back and maybe the small details, maybe do that, or maybe take better notes. And I'm a note guy. I got a pocket full of notes right now, things I need to do, but probably taking notes and not just reading the information, but actually going back and maybe researching some of that so I can remember it down the road. And I'm actually doing that a lot more than what I ever have, just because I want to go back and think, wow, what happened today? Is it going to happen again? Like, the day we're recording this Stine Seedcast, the hogs 3 contracts were limit up $4.75. Well, when's that going to happen again? And stuff like that. So I'm trying to just pay more attention to the detail and probably take better notes. That's what I would tell myself. Take better notes, pay more attention.
What do you think, or what do you wish that growers knew about what you do?
probably the work that goes into it. I mean, I talk about getting up at 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and some people will say, "Wow, you do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but it takes that. It takes that. I don't want to just walk in and hope my computer fires up that morning. And I want to be prepared. I want to get up early. I want to get in there, get my job done, and just deliver the best information I can. So probably the work that kind of goes into it. I mean, it your brain never shuts off, and I mean, you got to stay on top of it, and I try and do that.
Because on a regular day, you're on the air. What?
Well, I go in. So my day, I get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock, go in and do a little show prep and kind of look and see what the markets are doing, and go in and record part of my music shift. And at 7:45, I've got my first live market report. So, I start really putting that together a little before 6 o'clock, work about an hour and a half on that. And I'm ready to go at 7:45. And then from there, a little bit of a break, then the markets open back up at 8:30 and go back on at 9:12, and just pretty much do that until 4:30 in the afternoon. But also in between there, I'm also doing interviews and so forth. So, a lot of times my interviews may start at 7 o'clock in the morning. Kind of depends on, where the person's at that I'm interviewing, what time zone they're in, what I've got to adjust to. And I try and do most of my interviews like before 8:45 in the morning, really, and then again like after 1:30 in the afternoon. So besides on air, I mean, it's the behind the scenes stuff too, putting the information together and the stories together, and working on those interviews that are done every day.
So it sounds like it's almost a 2-for-1. For every hour you're on the air, there's at least a couple of prep and
exactly.
Planning.
It's continuous. I mean, there's times that I get done at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, how did I get all that to work? But I keep a real tight calendar. I know it's just exactly what I've got to do, and I always want to. Somebody told me a long time ago, they said, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. So I always try and do the interviews, 5 minutes early or something like that. And today with technology, if I were to do an interview with you tomorrow, I would, if it was going to be at 7:30 in the morning, I'd text you like at 7 o'clock and say, David, this is Duane, and just a reminder, I'm going to, give you a call at 7:30. And so I'm able to do that. And I try and do that. I try and do the stuff that way when I call, and David says, I forgot you were going to call today. But I want that, to be able to kind of work ahead of time. And it's just kind of what I do. So
well, in your day, you've got deadlines and timelines,
exactly.
and that makes it important that everthing falls into place.
Yeah, and that's the thing with radio. I mean, a lot of times there's not tomorrow. I mean, it's got to be today. And if it's 8 o'clock, it's 8 o'clock. It's not 9:30 and it's supposed to be 8 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock. So yeah, I mean, we work on hard time. It's when it's that time, it's that time.
Dead air is never a good look, is it?
No, not in our business. No, not at all.
I guess in closing, Duane, I'm thinking to myself, you've had so many different experiences, so many things that you've done. Is there something you think, gosh, before I'm done, I'd like to what?
Wow, that is a good question. I don't know that I've thought about that, because there's so many things that I do with my job that it's probably stuff that I would want to do. I mean, that seems kind of weird, but I get up so early. I'm usually done by 1:30, 1:45 in the afternoon. I've still got a lot of my day left. I can go home. I can, go help the Carver family. I can go mow. I can go do whatever's got to be done for the fire department. I've still got a lot of my day left. And then my job, I'm out at Feed the Farmer. I'm going all over the state and seeing different things, and go to farm shows, go to the Commodity Classic in Orlando, or in pastures in San Antonio. So really, honestly, I get to do so much at my daily job that I think it just kind of satisfies maybe me want to do something. And it may be kind of crazy to say, but I get to do so many neat things with my day-to-day job that I'm not really sure there's anything that will stick out that it's all good. It's all good.
Well, I suppose that's the way we should all be living our lives.
It's just all good. And and that's just kind of the way it is.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, Duane, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I appreciate you coming on, and just want to say thank you. Again, I've known you a long time. You're a great advocate for agriculture, and we need all the voices we can telling the story of wonderful things happening in agriculture, and you're a big part of that. We appreciate your time today, and thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, well, thank you, David, and thank you for your partnership with KWMT Stine Seed, and it's a great partnership. Thank you.
Well, that's our time today. I want to thank our guests and our listeners for joining us on another episode of the Stine Seedcast. We'll be back again soon with more expert interviews and insights about all things Stine. And to never miss an episode, subscribe to the Stine Seedcast wherever podcasts are found.
Subscribe to the Stine Seedcast wherever podcasts are found. To learn more about Stine and its elite corn and soybean genetics, visit stineseed.com. Stine has yield.